Hey guys, it's Jane. Friday today, so I'm back here for a Friday Reads. I finished 3 books and a short story. I finished this, Scarlet, and I think I'm not going to be continuing. Well, I'm not going to be continuing right now. It wasn't especially worse than the first one, but I think my appetite for it has pretty much been satisfied now. We had a really interesting discussion about this at book club earlier in the week. We got a huge range of reactions. We were actually talking about Cinder, but I'd read 2. My sister had actually gone right ahead and read 3. So that was fun. We got a real range of reactions to this. So it was actually a really fun book club discussion. I've actually got another quote that I picked out, which with really awkward wording, but I don't think I'm going to bother with that now because you pretty much heard what I had to say about that before. The thing about this that that actually made me feel uncomfortable rather than just like I'd been eating junk food was the relationship between the Red Riding Hood character and the wolf character and the way that was written. We have a meet cute and then they're kind of together and then they're not together, and classic romantic storyline arc. But there is a couple of sections when they're not together where we have scenes that are written for tension, like sexual tension, that just have this really unpleasantly rapey vibe. Like nothing actually happens, but it's written to kind of make you feel kind of gooey. But what is going on is the wolf is threatening to lose control and just take her by force. And I found that really quite disturbing. So for all of you people who've read this and who love the Lunar Chronicles, please write below and tell me that I'm an idiot or how I've read those sections wrong. I found it actually really kind of disturbing. Moving on. I finished American Gods. I was kind of half reading this paper version and half reading my book. I got right to the end before I discovered that they're actually different versions. They're different texts. The one on my e-reader, in very fine print, it says it's the 10th anniversary edition, and it's an expanded director's cut version of the text. But I hadn't noticed. I was mostly reading this, but I was partly reading this, and I hadn't actually noticed any differences. Catherine from the Android's Conundrum says that she thinks that there actually are just a few inserts of bits about different gods coming to America in the expanded version, and that would make sense. So, but I felt a bit stupid when I got to the end, and I was like, they're 2 different. But I hadn't. Yeah. I'm going to, for those of you who I loved it. Before we go any further with that, I just loved it. I know not everybody loves this book. I love this book. It's the vibe. The story is good. I like the characters. I like Shadow. He's the central character. He's this kind of relatively non-responsive, he's a big guy and he doesn't say much, kind of which is probably shouldn't be my thing, but he's written very sympathetically and I really enjoy him. And I especially love there's a whole bunch of minor side characters in here that I really enjoy. There's a super great quote, which I've decided I'm going to see if I can get made into a t-shirt, which I discovered, which is this. What I say is, a town isn't a town without a bookstore. It may call itself a town, but unless it's got a bookstore, it knows it's not fooling a soul. Loved that. I also found a really great quote in here, a couple of pages, which basically sums up the story and gives you a really nice feel for the dialogue. So I'm going to record a taster video. I was going to whack it in here, but it would have made this one too long. So look out for that coming up soon. After I finished this, on my ebook, there was included in the text was a short story written in the world of American Gods. It's called The Monarch of the Glen. I'm not sure if I'd read that before or not. So that's a story about Shadow, the central character in this book, and it takes place a few years after the end of the instance in the book. And that's a really interesting idea because Shadow is kind of changed in the course of this book, ontologically, fairly basically. And so it's interesting to think about what might have happened to him after all of this stuff washes up. And it was a good story. So if you are a fan of this and you haven't read that short story, Monarch of the Glen, you might want to look that out. I also finished Saga Volume One this week. And whew, I actually really enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to Volume 2. I actually enjoyed it so much I decided not to just sit down and marathon them. I would give myself a breather so it'd make them last a little bit longer. So the story is, it opens with this chick here giving birth to this baby. So that is our opening sequence, and it turns out that these two, her with the wings and him with the horns, are actually different races. She comes from a planet and he comes from the moon of this planet, and their peoples are at war, and they have expanded out to the universe more broadly and taken their war with them. He's sort of a pacifist, conscientious objector. He was in a prison and she was his prison guard or something, and they've escaped together. And they have had a baby, which is a problem because there's not supposed to be, and the powers that be are out to get them. So the story so far is basically them running for their lives, and they needed to do that moments after the baby appears. So I'm enjoying it so far. The other thing that I've spent most of this week doing is waiting by the door for a certain package to arrive, which has not happened thus far. This is the week that Seveneves was released. The release date there was not one release date. There was like several release dates in different kind of places. Different editions were released on different days. It's all very weird. I pre-ordered it from the UK because I preferred the cover image that was I could find there from the book depository than the one that is going to be released in Australia when I was looking at it a couple of weeks ago. So now I am paying for that by sitting waiting at the door, afraid to leave the house in case the mail comes while I'm out, and I have to get one of those little cards that says come back down and collect it from the post office, which will mean at least another day's wait because it takes a day to process back into the post office. So the ebook is now out. It was supposed to be out. That's the other thing. They said it was going to be out on a certain day, and I actually stayed up till midnight waiting for it to drop, waiting for it to change from pre-order to buy now, and it didn't. But it is now there. But a little bit of sanity. I've decided to wait for the paper one, which I spent far too much money on, because the ebook is $20 or something, which is what I'd normally pay for a paper book. So presumably that will come down at some point in 6 months' time or something, and I can buy the ebook then. But I've already spent a mozza on the paper book, so I am now waiting for the paper book to come before I read it. In the meantime, I've been reading The Winter Queen, which I'm about halfway through, and I'm loving that. It's such a good read, so I'll be telling you about that soon. And I've also, on my ebook, I've just started a Hank Phillipi Ryan book called The Other Woman. I'm only a couple of chapters into there, but yeah, I'll be telling you about that one when it's done as well. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.